killed in a shooting at a mosque that happened yesterday. So be sure to tune in to your local programs for all of those national headlines, for more local headlines as well. My name is Regina Gonzalez. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
There's no restriction that would prevent them from being able to do so. I think we do that, and I'm trying to remember what that ordinance is that we did a while back where we did citations. Joy may know off the top of her head.
Yeah, it was in the fireworks ordinance,
right,
where that is applicable in the jurisdictions that don't have their own fireworks ordinance, and their law enforcement then would enforce our ordinance in their jurisdiction, and it would go through their enforcement process. Our sheriff's deputies would not handle that.
Because, you know, Orange County, in terms of jurisdictional authority, it can be kind of complex. Sometimes one side's in the county, the other side of the street is not, you know, and it creates, we want to have consistency, especially if they're going from home to school or wherever, where that entire route that they're going, where we're doing enforcement through the entire area. And if we didn't do it if we just made it in unincorporated Orange County, what happens is right down the street, the kid walks the bike and then it gets back on it, and you know, right down the street. So so I think that for consistency's sake and enforcement's sake, we kind of need to broaden the footprint out somehow. Okay. Danny, you were going to say something.
Mayor, I could offer, I've also met with the Orange County Police Chiefs Association, the Orange Osceola Police Chiefs Association, and there's a lot of appetite from the law enforcement executives throughout the municipalities in Orange County to see some step in enforcement opportunities. Some of those, there's some municipalities that are currently considering ordinance of their own, Winter Park, Maitland, some others now. But a lot of them right now are looking to the aggressiveness which Orange County is pursuing this topic, optimistic that perhaps Orange County may go a route of an ordinance that solves their issue for them, notwithstanding what you pointed out, that they have to have that enforcement capability with their police officers. But there's a lot of optimism throughout the municipalities right now to set some sort of ordinance structure that gives them enforcement capabilities in those municipalities.
You know, thank you. You know, sometimes when you think about this and you think about enforcement involving children, where fines can be issued, tickets can be written, sometimes it sounds kind of heavy-handed, but the data is so startling about the injuries, the exposure, the safety concerns. It's compelling us to have to do something about it, and the only way you can gain compliance and really change the rider behavior, if you will, is through enforcement. And we'll just have to see where the conversation really goes. Today it seems like not just our community, but this conversation is being had all over the state of Florida with all counties right now. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to go to Commissioner Gomez-Cordero.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to continue the line of discussion that you just brought in. I want to say first, thank you to the parents that are here and the mom, you know, that have the I don't know, the energy, the strength and everything to be here, you know, after the difficult time of going through. I have to say also thank you to all of you, everyone that did this presentation for the briefing and everything. But going back to what the mayor was saying, and this is to benefit all the emails and questions that the residents in my district have been sending me. And I have to say that the two last, heavy accidents have been in District 4. One in Narcoosee Road, where the student, a female student, was injured, and then this one, where this kid, you know, have been passed away. It's tragic. So the residents wants to know, like Mayor said, we have to reinforce, but who will be doing this? Will be the officer in the school? Will the residents be calling a number, the non-emergency number? How is this going to work, or how the residents wants to know, is this going to work? Because, we have been, I know that we have lack of officers, and, sometimes the residents call and it's more than 3, hours before you can come, because, we are growing, so things happens, right? So I would like to know, how that reinforcement going to work for the benefit, right, of everyone. Like Mayor said as well, these are teenagers, minors, how this, going to connect with their parents. Sometimes, they get away. I have a lot of seniors that have been calling, very nervous because of what the video that was presented here, it happens in our area as well. And especially the drivers that are senior, they get scared because it's a lot, close to them, and they don't even know how to act. So that could provoke also some kind of accidents there. Okay, that's one of my question, but continuing, they want to know if they're going to be those classes, educational campaign that we're going to, come up with. Are we going to be providing any training classes to the drivers of these scooters and so, and we will give them like a certificate or something, a card that they can present to the, officers that they've, follow through with the certificate or with the training. The other thing that they said, if the helmet and the protection on the whole, because I was, talking to the mayor because I was scared, and kids doesn't have no protection, no helmet, but no protection, elbow and the knees, nothing. So they are like open. So are we going to bring up something extra beside the helmet for them? And then the officer says, Lieutenant, he said that the speeding mile would be 10 miles, but how fast does these, scooters and e-bike go for the rider to control 10 miles? There are some value question here that the residents have been asking, and I would like if you can address them, please.
Certainly. From your first question about enforcement, so this would fall under any other traffic incidents. So all the traffic complaints come through our office in the traffic section. We certainly have ways to do that online. They can call in. They can call that non-emergency number. So from an enforcement standpoint, the school resource officers are state statute mandated to be inside the property, so you won't see them. They won't be able to come out and do any enforcement. They can do some enforcement on school property, maybe during let out and our dismissal and entry time, but the main enforcement is going to fall under the sheriff's office, and that can be a regular patrol deputy, that can be a motor deputy, that can be whoever is out there. And we certainly currently work those complaints now where citizens are calling in about e-bikes, and we go out and work those on an enforcement side.
Thank you, Lieutenant. But in that same line, they are asking, will they be able, they present any videos, anything, catching them doing any irregular, or no?
No. The state statute wouldn't allow, so we do have to, it's going to be, we're going to have to witness it for it to happen. So.
Also, you will have to witness it.
We would have to witness it. Now, they can certainly submit pictures and videos to show what the issue is, and then we can respond out there and do the enforcement action based on that information that they send us. I can't write a ticket based on that video, but it can put me in the right area so I can maybe catch them doing it again. And then they do it in front of me, then I can take enforcement action then. And you had a question, like your fourth one.
If they're going to get any training, any certification, or they will be certified, how will we know, you all know, that they
so
take the training?
We really haven't had those discussions yet.
Okay.
When we talk about educational training, we're talking more about the do's and don'ts of e-bikes. Okay. And I think we're going to depend pretty heavily on OCPS to help us partner with that. Certainly, we've already planned a week-long, the first week of school, a week-long education campaign. Hopefully we'll have the ordinance by then, because we're talking about August, but where we would, the sheriff's office will go out and just pound the new ordinance and give warnings and say, next week's ticket time. So, and just try to get them to slow down and understand that. So we're talking more of the educational do's and don'ts versus a certification program where you're a certified e-bike user.
So will this come from law enforcement, or it could be also added in any school?
I certainly think that the sheriff's office would be a partner in that. So we would partner with Lauren's team on the educational component. Like I said, we're already planning one for the first week of school for next school year. And that would just us being a good partner and partnering with that. But there's a lot of, there could be potentially a lot of folks involved in that educational component. We would just be one cog of that.
Okay, and can you speak also about the speeding, 10 miles, whatever you said?
So the speeds are adjustable, so they're not on off. So it's either a twist throttle or a push button. So you can go 10 miles an hour. Now a lot of them don't have speedometers on them, so there may have to be some. They may have to figure out what that 10 mile an hour look is, and certainly when we pull them over, we can tell them they were not doing 10 miles an hour. But the speeds are adjustable.
Okay. Okay. So one of the questions is, what if law enforcement catch them, reinforce, or, what will happen? Will they have a ticket, and then that's always a warning, and then a ticket, and then goes to the parents? How does that work?
Well, certainly, the language that we've placed in the ordinance, and certainly you guys have to review, Mr. Newton has to approve and get in front of you, but if we're talking about what that proposed language is, then that language would be the driver, the operator of the e-bike would be given a ticket. And it'd be similar to a parking ticket. It would be a fine that was set by the board, and that would be sent to the comptroller's office just like a parking ticket would. Now, we did have that additional component we're hoping that you support, and that is the parental engagement, where we follow him or her home, and engage the parent to talk about, we've caught your child doing reckless behavior on this e-bike, and now you're notified that that's happening. And then possibly a second time, if it happens again, possibly giving the parent a ticket as well.
The parent a ticket, okay. And you said in one of the slides, it says that it is over 11,800, 42% of the students that have these e-bikes and e-scooters. You said it was more in middle school than in high school?
That was OCPS, but
Oh.
yes, the middle school is slightly higher. It has the highest percentage. High school's next, and then elementary school's the smallest amount.
Smallest. Okay. And I know this morning one of the public speakers says, well, we were going in bicycles, and it was like, you go this way, but anyway, it was simpler before. But okay, saying that, Lieutenant, one of my suggestions would be, based on all these things that have been coming up and down, is all, the organization for, how we going to connect for the safety awareness with, this campaign. I think that we also should include the HOAs. Okay? They are very into this. They have been calling my office as well, and they want to be part of it. The HOAs, I know you have community organizations, school board members, a representative. I think we all have to, chip in on this, because this is a community.
We agree, and like I said, I think the sheriff's office is just one cog in that, and I think the more people we can engage and educate on the do's and don'ts of these, the better off we're going to be, and the safer the kids are going to be.
Yes, another suggestion should be for the campaign, to post like in bus stops, in libraries, and so the kids are all over the place, so they should know more in the parks and so. Okay, and then and these all ideas and so from the residents, and it's District 4, but I think all my colleagues have their own emails as well, and people request. Okay, let me see. Another thing that that we as county, and I'm suggesting that we have to look and notice those sidewalks that are not like complete, that they don't continue, like in one, they stop, and then whoever go through them, they cannot go through them because there's no sidewalk. We should look into those to continue the sidewalks, to protect the bike lanes. You know, every time that we bring, you know, the construction of bike or the lane, I always say, but there's no protection, and the cars speed, and sometimes they don't care. I have to say that one of the things, I mean, and I'm going to just bring it in Puerto Rico, they have a law that when a bike, you know, rider or whatever are there, we have the cars need to let them go through, need to give them the space and so on, if not because of a lot of accidents.
Uribe, yeah, Commissioner Uribe.
Lauren and Danny and Lieutenant, what an amazingly comprehensive program that you guys have presented to us, and the detail is exquisite, especially in real time. I do want to echo, what do we need to do to make these bike lanes something Orange County does? Where's Public Works? Susan, all of you guys need to take, Brett, we need to take this back, because I tell you, I won't ride in the bike lanes because distracted drivers scare the heck out of me. You know, it's not intentional, but when you just drive down the road, you can just see how these cars swerve all over the place, and when you catch up to them, they're doing one of these, you know, and I think it's imperative. But I want to ask a couple detailed questions. I know we focused a lot on the scooters, and we're trying to bring in the e-bikes, but when we do have crash reports, how is that information currently collected to distinguish and to actually get data information? And I want to preface, I was coming out of my neighborhood about a month ago. There was a gentleman on an e-bike with his maybe 4 or 5-year-old daughter, and a car pulled out so far that they hit the car, right? And emergency came out, but I don't know if that was actually recorded as in any kind of.
So currently it is not, and that's one of the things with the Senate bill is it's going to be required as of July 1st. So right now our database doesn't have a section for electric bikes for crashes, so it just has bicycle. But I will say, I don't know the fire station number, but one of the fire stations out by Horizon or Windermere High School are keeping a separate tally on a whiteboard, and as of the middle of April, they were already at 44. That they responded, 44 crashes or injuries on electric bikes. So certainly unofficial, but come July 1st, all police departments and all sheriff's office troopers, everybody will have to report. There'll be a separate line item for e-bikes or scooters.
Okay, and Lieutenant, if I may further ask you, so all our schools now have resource officers. What's the message and the sentiment out there, and is there any way to leverage those relationships into additional enforcement or support on this effort?
Possibly, but understand what their role is. So their role is the safety and security of the child, and I know this falls under that, but they're limited by state statute on how far out they can go. So they have to be on property. So I can't put them out in the roadway to have them run radar or do some kind of enforcement activity with them. But as part of their duties, maybe it could be expanded and they could offer some enforcement on property. But they're also looking at a lot of other things, and their responsibilities are great.
Right. And if I can pursue it a little bit more, when you were talking about currently when the new statute takes into effect on July 1, we'll be able to, is there anything that prohibits us now? Because you know what I think of? I mean, there's the school factor, right? And we know when you showed us that video during our briefing, I thought it was Oak Ridge High School, right? Like, we all find this very common that we see. But summertime means kids are going to be out and about. It's going to be all kinds of hours. They're going to go to the mall. They're going to go here. They're going to go there. Are we prohibited from actually gathering that data to support this effort even further? Is it something that the sheriff is willing to do, or even our fire chief, into just having that direct real-time knowledge?
Well, as far as crashes go, we have to do it as of July 1st. So,
right.
So the database has to be updated. So we don't have that option right now. So and we don't handwrite those reports anymore. So everything's electronic. So we have to wait for the database to get updated in order for us to capture. We're talking about crash data.
Right.
Enforcement wise, we can still do enforcement over the summer if we see some, but we still run into that quandary of writing a state UTC and setting a permanent record for someone. And if the behavior's egregious and reckless enough, certainly maybe we can do that, and maybe they deserve that. But we can do enforcement over the summer as well. But it's just we're still limited on what we can do because they're treated like a regular bicycle. So I'm writing bicycle tickets as well.
Right. And I know Deputy Banks is going to say something, but I want to add something. I think because currently of the economic crisis, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm seeing much more people on scooters, on motorcycles. And what's insane is that the regulations at the state, you don't have to have a helmet on a motorcycle. You don't have to do these things. And then here we are we setting ourselves up somewhere in between for some sort of failure legally? And that's where I worry, because every time I see a motorcyclist, I'm like, at the minimal, you should have, your helmet on. But it's just, I think financially, people are just opting for, more inexpensive modes of travel.
And they are a great mode of transportation, there's no doubt, and they are inexpensive, but they're also dangerous if you're not, especially with a 10 to 14-year-old. And certainly I can't answer the legality of it, but if you guys give us an ordinance, we certainly will enforce it.
Okay, Director Banks.
Commissioner, I can just speak briefly to one of your questions. You mentioned you see the fire chief and the senior staff is here. So beginning in this discussion back in December, when the board first entertained this, the fire department started collecting our own data, uniquely when they respond to a traffic crash incident. Typically that may have been a vehicle versus pedestrian or bicycles. We didn't uniquely capture whether or not that incident involved a micromobility device prior to December of 2025. Fire chief took the initiative beginning in December of 2025 to start capturing that. So we have that data now. I don't want to misstate, but they shared some data with me the other day. I think we're in several hundred incidences that we've already captured in our own internal analysis that we know Orange County Fire Rescue has responded to incidents involving micromobility devices in our own community. So it really just further elevates some of the points that we put in the PowerPoint presentation today, that there are a lot of crashes occurring. They're involving injuries that involve a micromobility device. So we certainly expect that trend to continue and see that, we're spending a lot of resources responding to crashes that involve injury, and it further validates potentially the need for an ordinance to help slow things down and decrease those injuries.
Understood. I did want to also say, I think, Lieutenant, the word impound is huge. Being that we've dealt with the crisis of race cars and all of that over the last couple of years, whenever you impound those things, man, it really does change
Commissioner,
how-
I think that single item will be the most
Yes.
impactful and have the most accountability, because the kid now, the child has lost his independence that
Yes.
they are so much enjoying. And we're going to force them to take an online e-bike course in order to get their bike released.
That's great. I do want to echo, I don't think there's any parent out there that intentionally would support having their child, in that reckless behavior. I think kids are kids. We all know at that age we thought we were invincible and, nothing could stop us. But I do worry, and this is something we've done, in 7 years, golf carts, this, that, whatever was going on, enforcement. How many times do you guys get through us? Why can't we have more deputies out stopping people who roll through signs? Or why can't they have more deputies out in neighborhoods where they're going 50 when it's a 30? Realistically, I don't think we can deputy ourselves out of this, right? But I agree with you that we don't want to hinder a child's future because innocent, youthful indiscretion, as they call it, right? But it does worry us. And I think impound, when you take someone's, just like our own kids, when you take something they love, that's huge. And Lauren, I'm going to ask you, right? So I have some hesitation. I know we speak about Metro Plan Orlando and we work as a region, and that's great. But the reality is we're here, and the audience that we want to get to is here, which is young people, right? Mm-hmm. They couldn't tell you what Metro Plan Orlando even stood for and how we do it. The reality is it's TikTok. It's their peers. Having a young child, they have rallies for everything from reading to booster-thon to all this. I think our message has to be at the level of what a 10 to 14-year-old is going to accept it. We have great intentions, but the reality is kids aren't listening to that. They're not. You want to know what kids are listening, you go to TikTok. Really, that's their news. Mm-hmm. And I worry that we get caught up so much in the formal, because it makes sense to you and I. We're Metro Plan Orlando, heck yeah, they're leading the cause. They're regional. This is what we do. But do we have the adjacent counties on board with us? Every city that doesn't have an ordinance, are they willing to take this on? There has to be a consensus. If not, it's like mom believes one thing and dad believes another. Is there a consensus that we're going to work together for the betterment of our youth? But I really think there's so many other opportunities of how young people get their information. And most of it's through schools, through clubs, through SGA, through all these other things. I think we have to kind of get outside of the box and stop being institutional of what we think it should be, but really what they're looking at. And to me, one of those leads would be your principals from your middle school and high schools. They know what's going on. They know who's current. Who would have thought Hannah Montana is back in style? It's been 20 years, but she's relevant again. My 9-year-old's watching Hannah Montana because she had her 20th anniversary, but it's ever changing. And so I think we don't want to delay getting to them or letting to know them this. The only thing that I can always remember is thinking about Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, right? Growing up, that was the big message, and looking at accident scenes or looking at cars that were, that the police department would bring. That still stays in my mind, and so I just think that we have to be a little bit more broad on how we reach children and how we reach parents on how they engage and encourage your children on that good behavior, because I think we don't want anyone to be hurt. We don't want anyone to be a casualty of this. So I just hope that we'll be a little bit more open. But I'm 100%, Lieutenant, impound. You take away anything from a child, that's talking their language. And it shouldn't be on your third offense. It should be, this is how serious we're going to be. You do something, we're picking up all of them. And the other last thing, I'm hoping that OCPS will get one rule when it comes to how they store these items, because I think if you talk about a resource officers on the ground, right? So imagine if the school does allow for that parking. So that resource office can make sure, do they have their sticker? Are they, there's a little bit more compliance. But and I well know if it's on the outside, or as some schools do where kids park in neighborhoods or cars because there's not enough parking spots and stuff, it's much more hard to monitor that. But if you can contain it and actually welcome it, I think we'd have a better shot. So I appreciate you all. I wish we could find one thing, but the only last thing I would echo is the urgency. We don't want to be here in October still trying to vote on this. We want to definitely set this new school year as an expectation, and hopefully as they open up open house for high schools and middle schools, it's already part of the package for parents to know. But thank you all for everything you've done.
Commissioner Simrad.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree, Mayor, with you on the across the whole county and coming up with some form of, I know we just did a task force, and thank you guys, because this became way more complicated than what I think anybody thought it was once we started to look at how do you enforce and how do you inform and how do you educate and how do you pay for all of it while doing it. It's a lot. So having a county-wide, you know, with the municipalities, I think is really important. I'm concerned about the enforcement of this. I'm a parent of a 6 and 9-year-old. I would rather have my kids get a ticket that's even on their record later and have their life be saved than to have a non-enforcement of this. But where I get concerned is, they're motorized vehicles. They're electric vehicles. And I don't even understand why we have children who are 9, 10, and 11, and 12. I know that they look like traditional scooters or bicycles, but they're motorized vehicles. So I don't know, you know, in Orange County Public Schools a couple months ago, they were talking about banning these on being able to be parked on campus if you didn't have a driver's license. I think that's a great idea. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with getting to school in a traditional way when you're younger than 16 on a regular old bicycle that goes a little bit slower, or on a skateboard or on a scooter that's not motorized. These are motorized vehicles. You have to be 16 to drive a vehicle. You have to have a driver's license to drive a vehicle. And those videos, you know what they look like? It looks like what would happen if we had kids that were driving cars. You would also see cars going down the wrong side of the road. You would see them speeding. You'd see them using them inappropriately. And why shouldn't they? Because they're kids. And I also just want to remind, because we also have a big population, and it deviates between the largest and second largest in the nation of universities with UCF. And these are our big kids / young adults. And I teach there. And I can tell you, it doesn't look a lot different than the high school kids. They're also zipping around everywhere on those, down Alafaya, down University, weaving in and out. It's dangerous. I've also been downtown in an area. So now we're talking, I know we were heavily slanted towards schools because there's such a large population of kids using them, but it's not just elementary schools or middle or high school. You've got the universities, which we have many in Orange County, technical colleges as well. We also have in downtown, I mean, we have a ton of tourists. And so now this deviates between the ride and share programs and privately owned. But I think we need to have some type of enforcement with tourists, because tourists have a tendency when they're on vacation to act differently. So when I was downtown going to an event, we were on the sidewalk and an e-bike came through really fast. And the person was like ringing the bell obsessively, trying to let us know they're coming. And they said, "I'm so sorry. I don't usually drive these things. I don't know how to do this." But we had to jump out of the way because we would have been hit by an e-bike. And that's me with 2 little kids. So it's a bigger problem than just on school campuses. We all got an email from the iDrive Chamber. So we know it's a problem on But the buy-in and the enforcement and the education and the standardization of policy, it seems like we need to have a broader effort across with all municipalities.
So yeah, we're having this conversation in a few moments. We'll give staff direction on what they will bring back. So, there's some work that has to be done.
But I think we're all in agreement that it needs to be county.
Yeah, is there any taste or interest for just Orange County Public Schools? I mean, they were talking about banning these on property and parking them on campus. Like, are we?
I think it's a mistake to do a ban without understanding what the consequences of that are. A comprehensive ban is.
If you're less than 16 years old for a motorized vehicle. That's what I'm talking. I mean, I'm.
Well, in some ways, the school district has
that's
a policy now.
That's a different proposal, and I would say we could take it up as a different conversation. That's not this proposal, so I wouldn't support that.
Well, and right now, the schools, some of them, this district has made its own policies. And you saw the picture where they're parking them outside the gate of the school, on the curtilage thereof. But that doesn't look right either. But in either case, we won't be able to solve all of that today. But because I think it needs, the district I know has done some research and some other things. So we would have our staff kind of work through some of those issues and come back. Some of what I was hearing was, let's kind of expedite the process without doing a workshop, okay? And just, if that happens, we have to somewhat empower them to bring back an ordinance that kind of takes into consideration.
Mayor, I think the discussion was a great discussion. I'm not hearing that there's a deviation from that plan to bring back an ordinance. I hope we're not saying that.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm like, okay.
What I'm saying is what is in the ordinance. Okay, we were saying expedite it, don't do a workshop, just bring the ordinance back.
Yeah, we need
and if we're going to stay on that path, then we have to empower them to, when they come back with the ordinance, it has all of these other things, these components in it. So, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, and Commissioner Wilson for bringing this forward. Lieutenant or Lauren, have you guys engaged any of the faith-based or charter schools in these conversations yet, or is that further down the line?
No, we didn't. We did not yet.
Is there a plan to engage them?
We definitely can, absolutely. I think this is, there's that public engagement portion that we didn't have time to do in the short amount of time that we did have, but that would definitely be part of that as well. So I think Commissioner Gomez-Cordero mentioned the HOAs, so that's definitely be part of that plan moving forward.
Okay. And then likewise, other than just kind of casual conversation, have you intentionally engaged the executives of the other law enforcement agencies?
We did engage law enforcement agencies. Do you want to speak more?
That's what Director Banks mentioned earlier.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I missed that question.
Well, so he mentioned you engaged them, but I'm like, he said kind of around, like, I guess I'm trying to understand what was the engagement like? Was it just kind of casual conversation, or did you intentionally engage the other law enforcement agencies, specifically the chiefs of the other departments?
So, Commissioner, it was not casual at all. So I met numerous times and invited each of the police chiefs from every municipality in Orange County to participate, going back into December of last year, to participate in these work group sessions that Lauren defined to you. And many of them did so. The police chief themselves attended numerous police chief association meetings where this discussion was brought up. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those municipal police chiefs and their departments are optimistic about Orange County taking a position, potentially passing an ordinance that could also benefit them. Now, if the county passed an ordinance that gave them some more enforcement opportunities, it may help their municipal governments to determine whether they needed to do anything in addition to an effort that Orange County government did, or do something on their own. But there's a lot of optimism behind ordinance opportunities right now that they could equally use to conduct enforcement activities in their jurisdictions.
All right, thank you. I'm good, Mayor.
All right, so Ms. Carmichael has been wanting to speak, so attorney, come on.
Joy Carmichael, Assistant County Attorney. I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Simrat's comment about the age requirement. We have up on the screen, as you know, the Sheriff's Office is leading in preparing a draft ordinance, and they'll send it over to our office for review. So they have those recommendations in their draft, but I want you to know that the state statute set out particular areas where you can also legislate in this area, and one of them is that a local government can set minimum age requirements for micromobility devices, and the micromobility devices are, categorized to include e-bikes as well as the motorized scooters. In addition, you're able to, establish a minimum speed as well. We currently limit e-bikes to 10 miles per hour at this time on sidewalks. And I'm trying to think of the other one. Oh, and also the government-issued ID, photographic government-issued ID is another requirement that you can establish as a local government, just to add those to your consideration.
You have a question, Commissioner Scott?
I just had one additional question I forgot. Lieutenant Crabb, you mentioned that there was an e-bike that went 83 miles an hour? Or was it 82? Or?
It was 83.
Okay.
On the sidewalk with no helmet.
I guess I know they're able to jailbreak them, but even with the jailbreaking, doesn't it limit how fast they can go, or was it?
No, they come from the factory with a limiter. So class 1 and 2 is 20 miles an hour, class 3 is 28 miles an hour, and those are correct. They do work, but some YouTube videos and some aftermarket parts, and you can make them do that. We pulled one over today. So the statute talks about more or less than 750 watts. We pulled over one today that he had modified 4,000 watts. Now I don't know what that means technically, other than the statute talks about 750 watts, and I know my Evans high school education math tells me that 4,000 is a lot higher than 750. Okay. So and he was in. Was he 50, 54? 45.
Okay.
He was going 45 miles an hour.
So it's a little bit more skills. I know the kids can do it. I just didn't know if it was like more common to see those 50, 60 mile, 80 hour speed limits.
We commonly see them over 50 miles an hour.
Even with the younger kids?
They're generally older teens. Yeah, we're certainly our middle school kids, we consistently see them in the 30s. So, and some aftermarket parts, and you're pretty easy to get them there.
In the 15 years I've known you, I don't understand how I've gotten more gray hairs in 2 years than you have none. So whatever you're doing, let me know so I can do it too.
Okay.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate you.
Commissioner Simrat?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Carmichael, did you have any examples of other municipalities, counties, or anything like that maybe says like, hey, in elementary school, this is not an appropriate device? Is there any other legislation that's come out yet or not yet?
I'm not aware of any in the schools.
Thank you.
So, one of the questions Commissioner Gomez-Cadero was inquiring about was, can you make it unlawful to modify the speed?
I think that's a good question.
And that's probably a state issue, but that's, I don't know if we have that authority.
We actually had that discussion about putting something like that in the ordinance, and it's an enforcement issue. So how do I know?
Right.
How do I know that it's been modified? Other than it's going faster than it's supposed to. So that is a clue, but I don't know what actual modifications were made.
I mean,
Yeah.
could it be an something that would exacerbate? Like if you saw the 85, then you could trigger the second part of the ordinance, which would be a potential confiscation for modifying.
Do we have the technical capability? That's something that I don't know that we can, that's something you all will have to investigate if there are jurisdictions around the country, if there's any way to do it. But we don't have that answer today, and I respect what you're saying. But I do believe that when you come back, think about it this way. Okay, today is May the 19th. And school will start again, in August. And that's a lot to get done between now and August.
So as y'all go through this next part of your discussion, I'll just ask that, because I don't know how many additional thoughts or ideas the board may have. I heard some, but if you want to get to start when we get the draft and kind of work from what the sheriff's office has developed, that may help us speed this along. I just wanted to put that caveat because I didn't know exactly where y'all were.
Well, I'm just hearing the commissioners, they want to make sure that the community is informed first, and that takes time, I think, to build a curriculum, allow people to sign up. Parents, is it online training? Is there an online component? Is this an in-person kind of training component? And if so, where does that happen? Those are just thoughts now. I can't answer the question, is all I'm saying to you, Byron. I'm just looking for, generally, we will endeavor to say that we will bring it back. If that's an August date, you want to try to go for a couple of months. It's going to be ambitious is all I'm saying, period.
I was just talking about in terms of the actual the ordinance itself. I know the other parts that go along with the education portion. I was just simply speaking to getting the ordinance, that first draft of the ordinance to the board in a manner that you all described, that you'd like to have it in place prior to school starting.
But I think everything that was in the bullet point from law enforcement on what they are including in the ordinance is exactly what we've been talking about. So, they've got the speed limits, enforcement of reckless activities, parental notification, responsibility, post-notification, accountability, ability to impound, and then the sidewalk conversation. So that was sort of, it seems to be encompassing of the primary concerns. And then I think we have to start somewhere and get it put into place and then build that the parallel educational component.
Lieutenant Crabb.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, 100% correct. And I'm committing to you that we're going to get the draft to the sheriff for approval no later than next week. So, and once the sheriff approves it, then our general counsel, Austin Moore, will work with your crew, Mr. Newton, and it won't be held up on our part. I promise you that.
Okay. All right.
Is it possible for you to just give the update of what that'll totally include?
Basically, what was on that slide, basically what Commissioner Wilson just went over is all is inclusive.
Can we go?
In the law enforcement portion of the slides.
All right. So just calendar-wise, Barton, for us, we will endeavor for an August period of time to, there's some pieces here that still require some research to be done. Okay, even with the ordinance being final, there's still some things that we want to do it right. So I just want our staff to have adequate time to be able to do it. Okay. All right. So 60 days, somewhere within that period of time. Okay. All right. Thank you all for a fairly lengthy conversation today. We knew it would be somewhat lengthy, but with that, we're going to go into recess and we'll reconvene at 2 p.m. for the afternoon portion. Thank you.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes gentleman from New Jersey, Dr. Conaway.
Took me by surprise there, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for presenting yourself to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member, for holding this hearing. I first want to extend my thoughts and prayers to the families and loved ones who are currently serving around the world. We've lost 14 service members. Hundreds have been injured. I should say at the outset that these are the dearest costs of war, as I don't need to tell you, but often don't get calculated when we talk about the costs of war to the American people. The budget numbers that need to be put aside to deal with the veterans, the families who go on living and need care. Gentlemen, Admiral and General, your job is obviously a very tough one, and you have to execute orders given by the Commander-in-Chief, as is your responsibility. And I want to acknowledge the tireless work that you have undertaken on behalf of our country. I am dismayed to hear statements about no quarter and we're going to wipe out a civilization. And I just have to raise that as a person sitting on this panel. I know that you really can't answer that. Well, you did answer it. You said we're going to follow the rules, the law of armed conflict, and I appreciate that. And that gives not only myself but other members on this panel, I think, in the services as well, of your commitment to that. I'm also dismayed that there doesn't appear to be a strategy to end this war with all deliberate speed, and it's concerning, obviously, to the American people, given the costs associated with this war. Recently, Yale came out with a study that American people are spending $40 billion on fuel costs, that American families are going to spend about $3,500 on such expenses at year's end. And, of course, sadly, the President has said that this microeconomy, this household economy, is not important to him. Those are paraphrasing his own statements. But it is important to my constituents and to the many people across this country who understand that they are paying for this war. And because the American people are paying for this war, they have a right to know what a strategy is going to be undertaken to end this war. So, Mr. Zimmerman, could you please outline how we're going to get to the end of this conflict? This conflict is not going to be ended, in my view, by military action alone. It's going to take negotiation. We've had waffling back and forth. It's over. It's not over. We're going to get a deal. We don't have a deal. And it doesn't appear to the American people, and rightly so, that we have a plan to end this conflict. So can you enlighten us? How are we going to get to the end of this conflict and put a stop to the enormous strain that is placing on our budgets as a nation and on the micro budgets of the many people in this country who have to get about the business of living and working and raising their family and preparing for the future?
Mr. Congressman, thank you. As you know, we have a ceasefire, and that is the current state of affairs.
With a blockade going on, but go ahead. Yeah.
And the White House is engaged in high-level negotiations to reach a resolution that will be in the interest of the American people and advance their safety and prosperity.
Any idea, again, when we're going to get to the end of this conflict and end it? I personally have to tell you, I think we should declare victory and leave and get our people home. The best way to protect them is to pull them out of this conflict and lower, with the appropriate cautions, our presence there in that region and begin to repair the great damage that this war has caused to our allies and to the world economy. Never mind, and to understate the damage to our own economy. Let me move on, and getting back to this, again, this cost question. On April 29th, the committee was provided information on the costs of war. The comptroller was here and provided a number of $25 billion. At that time, we have heard repeatedly in the press that it's $1 billion a day and more, and now it's somewhat almost 30 days later. Oh, well, not quite 30 days later, but now we're told that the number has just risen to $25 billion. It seems out of step with what we're hearing about what the daily costs of war are, and I am concerned that we're not adequately accounting for the veterans and their care going forward. So what are the costs of war? What can you tell us? And when will you report to us, as you promised and others?
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Bell.
Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. General Anderson, it's good to see you again, and I appreciate you taking the time last month to discuss the challenges facing your AOR. I want to begin with CENTCOM. In the past few months, several of our bases in the region have been targeted and severely damaged. More than 200 military assets, including hangars, barracks, radar systems, and other critical infrastructure relied upon by our service members, have also reportedly been destroyed or damaged. Simultaneously, the Pentagon's projected cost of this unauthorized war appears to continue shifting from roughly $25 billion one day to $29 billion the next. Importantly, those estimates
Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you. Go get your lunch. Yeah, Boris, there is. There are multiple questions that he could face when the vice president comes in here, which I should remind you is happening because the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, is on her maternity leave right now. So we've seen other top officials come in here into the briefing room, including the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Now to be the Vice President JD Vance taking questions from reporters inside a very packed briefing room today where there are so many topics that could come up, including the questions that President Trump himself faced earlier from reporters as he was touring them around the White House ballroom construction here on the south lawn of the White House. That's where he said that Iran attack could happen early next week, that he is giving them a few more days as these negotiations are continuing to play out after he announced yesterday pretty abruptly on Truth Social that he was planning to attack Iran today, something he says he was at about an hour away from making that decision yesterday when he decided at the behest of allies like Qatar and Saudi Arabia to end up calling off those attacks while these negotiations are playing out. So obviously we'll see what the vice president has to say about the state of those negotiations, but also there's so much news here domestically as well with all of those primaries that are taking place today. And earlier you saw President Trump come out and make good on his statement earlier that he was going to endorse a candidate in the Senate Texas primary race. He came out and endorsed Ken Paxton, and obviously that throws a huge wrench in the Senate GOP plans, given he is coming out and endorsing someone who is running against a current incumbent right now on Capitol Hill in John Cornyn. And then, of course, the president also weighed in on Thomas Massie, who is up for his election tonight in his primary. There are open questions about whether or not he is going to survive that after the repeated attacks by the president and the endorsement of his rival in that race. And you saw the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth out there campaigning for him yesterday in an incredibly rare moment to see the Pentagon chief out on the campaign trail in that way. And then, of course, the Deputy Attorney General, the Acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is up on Capitol Hill, and he's been testifying in front of lawmakers and defending that fund that was created and confirmed by the Justice Department yesterday that could potentially benefit allies of this White House who believe that they were wrongfully prosecuted or investigated by previous Justice Departments. And so there's a lot out there on the agenda, obviously a lot of questions for the Vice President when he comes out here to the lectern any moment now, Boris. Thanks, guys. Breaking room's so quiet today. You guys are so considerate. Hi, oh wow. What's up, stranger? How you doing? Good. Yeah, living the dream. Well, normally I have like 5 in my pocket. I don't have your pockets. Jane Wynn, W-I-N. She's so cute. She like yeah.
Really. All right. Thank you. You have your mic on? All right.
I can now request a screen or something.
You're for here. You're for here. That's all that.
I filled out one of those, whatever it is.
I heard that too. I don't think it was you. No, it's gotta be it. They hit me up about it. I don't know if it was maybe a Dylan thing or something. It's being earned in.
Oh, really? They're not approved?
No. Really? Yeah, but I mean, this is different too. I did it, I went rogue, just for some random one.
Yeah.
So what's the worst thing that happens? I'll go to your reading. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be in town this weekend, so like luckily it's like okay, but I am like very susceptible. Bigger from you. You're welcome.
Whatever.
briefing, 2 minutes till the briefing.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. How you guys doing? Good. Okay, I've got my sheet here. So I know who to call on, most importantly, who not to call on. Let me start out with a few things. So first of all, I'm proud to announce that next week I will be speaking at the Air Force Academy commencement ceremony. Last year I spoke at the Naval Academy commencement ceremony, and it was one of the great honors and privileges of my life. So I'm excited to go out there to Colorado and participate in that ceremony. The second thing is I want to highlight a little bit some of the work that we've been doing, the great work our team has been doing on the anti-fraud task force, where We have caught just in the last couple of months billions upon billions of dollars of fraud in our hospice system, in our Medicaid system, in our Medicare system, in our immigration system. We've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of fraudulent loans that were being handed out through the Small Business Administration that we've identified and stopped. And we've also started investigating some of the fraudulent criminal activity and also prosecuting some of the fraudulent criminal activity. So the thing that I say to the American people, and I'll repeat here to all of you, is, fraud is a crime that has two victims. It has, first of all, the American taxpayer, people who pay their taxes, who out of their generosity, and because they have to, of course, they pay their taxes expecting that it's going to go to pay our troops and ensure that low-income children have access to food and ensure that people get medical benefits even if they're not able to afford a doctor. I think it's a great thing about our country is that we have this generosity of spirit where we take care of one another, but fraud takes that away from us because it steals money from the taxpayer when they pay their taxes, and it also steals money from innocent people who are meant to benefit from these programs but can't when the money runs dry because it's gone to fraudsters instead of the people who benefit from it or should benefit from it. So we're going to keep that work up. The President of the United States has been very clear that he wants us to focus on fraud. He wants us to prosecute the fraudsters, and he wants us to save the American people as much money as we possibly can. So we're going to keep at it. We're very proud of that work, and importantly, very proud of the team who've done an incredible job. And then finally, just to give an update on the Iran negotiation, the Iran situation, I just talked to the president very briefly before I came out here. It's actually a very simple proposition here. There are two options, two pathways we can go down when it comes to the Iran situation. So step back for a little bit. What the President of the United States has said is, number one, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And I think it's important for the American people and all of you to appreciate that when we say that, it's not just that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, it's what would happen if the Iranians did get a nuclear weapon. We know that a lot of nations all across the Gulf would then want their own nuclear weapon, and then a lot of nations all across the world. And what has been a very effective bright spot of American foreign policy really for the last 20 or so years would disappear overnight. If you have every country in the world scrambling to try to get a nuclear weapon, it would make us all much less safe. And Iran would really be the first domino and what would set off a nuclear arms race all over the world. That's very, very bad for the safety of our country. As the father of 3 young kids, I don't want them to inherit a world where 20 additional regimes, half of them very dangerous and very sympathetic to terrorists, have nuclear weapons. We want to keep the number of countries that have nuclear weapons small, and that's why Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, on top of all the other things that we might be worried about, that they themselves could use it, that they could use it in leverage and economic control or economic negotiations. We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. Now, what we did here is that we effectively degraded their conventional military capability. That has been done. That has been successfully done. You could always do a little bit more, but where we are now is the president has asked us, has told us, to aggressively negotiate with the Iranians. Why did I go to Islamabad, Pakistan? Why did I spend, I think, probably 22 hours on a plane going there, 24 hours coming back, and then 21 hours on the ground negotiating with the Iranians? Is because we wanted to show a sign of good faith. The Vice President of the United States is willing to cut a deal so long as the Iranians are willing to meet us, again, on that core issue of never having a nuclear weapon. We think that we've made a lot of progress. We think the Iranians want to make a deal. The President of the United States has asked us to negotiate in good faith, and that's exactly what we've done. So we're in a pretty good spot here, but there's an option B. And the option B is that we could restart the military campaign to continue to prosecute the case, to continue to try to achieve America's objectives. And we could talk a little bit about what that looks like, but that's not what the president wants, and I don't think it's what the Iranians want either. We have an opportunity here, I think, to reset the relationship that has existed between Iran and the United States for 47 years. That's what the president has asked us to do, and that's what we're going to keep on working at. But it takes two to tango. We are not going to have a deal that allows the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon. So as the president just told me, we're locked and loaded. We don't want to go down that pathway, but the president is willing and able to go down that pathway if we have to. So with that, I will say thank you all. It's cool to be here. I'm going to give a shout out, of course, to the person I am replacing today, Carolyn Levitt, who hopefully is at home enjoying some time with her beautiful kids. I told Carolyn I would stand in for her today for the White House press briefing on the condition that when Usha has our baby in July, that she would be vice president for a couple weeks. So thank you, guys. And I actually want to start first with Nick from Breitbart. Nick, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you. Today we saw the president endorse Ken Paxton over John Cornyn in the Texas Senate race. Do you think that sends a message going forward for the next cycle to senators, considering running for re-election, or any MAGA-aligned potential candidates that are considering challenging them?
Well, I'd say a couple things, Nick. First of all, I think the president's very gratified by the response that he's heard from the base and from a lot of voters, I think, who are passionate about Ken Paxton. We think Ken Paxton is going to be a great senator for the people of Texas, but most importantly, a great United States senator who can work on solving the problems that all of us confront as a country together. I've known John Cornyn for a long time, but unfortunately, when it really counted, Ken Paxton was there for the country, was there for the president, and that's why he ultimately earned the president's endorsement. He thinks he's going to be a better senator, thinks he's going to make a better candidate. And so I do think it sends a message, but really not just the endorsement, but one of the things the president has done very effectively, going back 10 years in his leadership of the Republican Party and the country as president of the United States, is he said, I want people who fight for the good. I want people who can't be bought by corporate lobbyists, who can't be bought by Wall Street, who can't be bought by special interests, who are going to go to Washington and fight for the people who actually elected them to those positions. And I think one of the things we've seen in the Republican Party, while I can't say that all of our representatives are perfect or all of our senators are perfect, we have seen a much better crop of talent come into Washington since Donald Trump has been the leader of the party and the leader of the movement. I do think we're going to continue to see that happening. But I think the message that people should take from this is fundamentally, you have got to serve the people who sent you. And if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself out of step with voters or out of step with the President of the United States, and that's not a good place to be politically.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just following up on what you just said, you said that the White House is negotiating with Iran in good faith. I think Americans tend to believe that, but what is it about the Iranian side that you personally have seen where you believe that they are negotiating with us in good faith?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a very complicated country, and it's a country that I wouldn't pretend that I understand even after as deep as I've been involved in this process from the very beginning. It's a great and proud civilization, amazing people. We obviously have a great Iranian American community here in the United States of America, smart people, very hardworking, and you see some of that in the negotiating team on the other side. You also see some very hardline positions in the negotiating team on the other side. And so I think you see that conflict, the fact that maybe the Iranians aren't themselves quite clear in what direction they want to go to. They also are just a fractured country. So you have the leadership of the country, there's the supreme leader, and then there are a lot of officials below the supreme leader that has some influence in the negotiation. It's not sometimes totally clear what the negotiating position of the team is. And I don't know if that's sometimes bad communication, if that's bad faith. I wouldn't pretend to venture a guess there, but I will say with confidence, it's sometimes hard to figure out exactly what it is that the Iranians want to accomplish out of the negotiation. So what we've done is tried to be as clear as possible. What are our red lines? What are the things that we're willing to be accommodating on? And what are the things that we absolutely must have? And as the president has said ad nauseum, and I think I've said it a lot too, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We want to see not just the commitment to not have a nuclear weapon, but the commitment to work with us on a process to ensure that not just now, not just when Donald Trump is president, but years down the road that the Iranians are not rebuilding that nuclear capability. And that's what we're trying to accomplish in the negotiation. Sorry, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, just for Americans at home, because this has been going on for several weeks now. I think what people just want to know is, do you personally believe that the Iranians will come to a deal? Because we keep seeing this over and over again where they go back and forth.
So do I personally believe it? The honest answer is, how could I possibly know, right? And you negotiate with people, and sometimes you feel like you're making progress, and sometimes you feel like you're not making progress. What I think is that the Iranians want to make a deal. What I think is that the Iranians recognize that a nuclear weapon is the red line for the United States of America, that they've internalized that. But we're not going to know until we're actually putting pen to paper on signing a deal. We've had a lot of drafts, a lot of pieces of paper going back and forth. But I will not say with confidence that we're going to reach a deal until we're actually signing a negotiated settlement here. And I think that it's ultimately up to the Iranians whether they're willing to meet us, because I think we're certainly doing a good job and we're certainly negotiating in good faith. We're going to have to see what ultimately happens with them. I can't say with confidence because I don't know what's in the mind of the other side. John?
Mr. Vice President, thank you. I want to ask you about that $1.8 billion fund set up, weaponization fund as it's being called. Why should taxpayers be paying to settle a $10 billion lawsuit that was brought by the President of the United States? And should people that attacked the Capitol building and assaulted police officers, should they be eligible? Should they receive money? Should they receive money from this fund?
Well, let me say a couple things about that. First, John, I think in some ways the media has misrepresented what this is actually about. This is about compensating Americans for the lawfare that we saw under the last administration. And by the way, anybody can apply for it. Republicans can apply for it. Democrats can apply for it. As you know, the President of the United States has pardoned a number of Democrats who he felt were actually subject to this lawfare. I mean, if Hunter Biden wants to apply for this particular fund, he is welcome to. It's going to go through a normal process where we vet everything, where we try to identify whether people's claims are actually legitimate. But here's the question. When you say, why should taxpayers fund this? Whenever the United States government incurs legal expenses, it pays out those legal expenses. When it's settling a lawsuit, it pays out money to settle that lawsuit. And the question is a dollar of this money going to the Trump administration? No. Is a dollar of this money going to Donald Trump personally? No. Is a dollar of this money going to Donald Trump's family? No. The people that would get the money are people, some of whom have been prosecuted completely disproportionate to any crime they've ever committed. Like, let's just take a couple of examples. Tina Peters is this woman who is about to get out of prison, thanks in large part to the president's good work in Colorado. This is a woman who, at worst, if you believe everything that the prosecutors said about her, committed misdemeanor trespassing, and somebody threw the book at her. This innocent grandmother was going to spend 10 years in prison, completely disproportionate to any misdemeanor trespassing that I've ever seen. Was that fair? No. Is it reasonable for her to get some compensation for the fact that she was treated unfairly? I think the answer is yes, and I think that what we're going to see, hopefully, is the entire country, led by this Department of Justice, turning the page on the lawfare. What I would like to propose, and I think the Democrats, hopefully they're willing to meet us halfway here. I won't hold my breath. But what I would propose is something very simple, that if you are willing to turn the page on Joe Biden's lawfare, why don't we prosecute people? Very simple principle. Why don't we prosecute people who violate the law? Let's not prosecute people because they said the wrong thing or because they had the wrong political candidate or because they had the wrong viewpoint. And I think part of turning the page on that is to actually ensure the real victims of that lawfare receive some compensation. That's what this fund is going to be targeted at. And again, there's going to be a process to ensure that that money is only given to people who have actually, I hate to say earned it, but the people who actually were really mistreated by the previous administration and Department of Justice. Go ahead.
I understand that everybody is eligible to apply for this fund. I mean, you're eligible, but I assume you're not going to apply, and you don't think you should get money out of this fund. Of course. So isn't it just as easy to say that people that attacked police officers should not get taxpayer money from this fund?
Well, look, John, we're not trying to give money to anybody who attacked a police officer. We're trying to we're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them, they were mistreated by the legal system. Sometimes, we do have, John, in this country, innocent until proven guilty. We do have people who were accused of attacking law enforcement officers. That doesn't mean that we're going to completely ignore some of the claims that they're going to make. We're going to evaluate these things on a case-by-case basis. And if we think that somebody, whatever they were accused of, if we think that somebody was unfairly prosecuted and deserves just compensation, then that's what this fund is going to exist to provide. It's just going to correct a wrong, and I think that's a good thing. And I'd encourage everybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, let's turn the page on this thing that we did under the last administration where we tried to throw people in prison because they had the wrong politics. Let's throw people in prison who broke the law. I think this fund is a good part of getting justice for the people who were wrongly treated. Back there, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Just to follow up on that quickly, does that mean that people that were violent, that were convicted, were mistreated? Are you saying that?
Well, you're asking me to comment on hypotheticals and on any number of dozens of cases. Here's the thing. We're going to look at everything case by case. As you know, every single case has its own details. Every single case has, there are things about it that maybe don't meet the eye. We're just going to look at every case by case. That's all I'm saying. I'm not committing to giving anybody money or committing to giving no one money. What I'm committing to is a legal process to review these claims and to make sure that people who are mistreated by their government get a little bit of compensation because of it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir. I realize that the pointer finger is not as precise as I thought it was. The guy I have this cheat sheet, but the problem with being 41 years old is I'm blinder than I was a few years ago. So we'll say blue blazer, blue tie. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd like to ask a quick follow-up on Iran, but first I'd like to ask you about fentanyl. Fentanyl sourced largely from China killed about 403,000 Americans over the past 7 years, according to CDC data. That's one in every 850 Americans who died. White House Counterterrorism Director Sebastian Gorka said last week that China's exports amounted to the targeted killing of Americans and war by other means. Do you agree with that assessment? And what is the Trump administration doing to punish and deter China, especially since the Supreme Court struck down the fentanyl tariffs?
So go ahead and ask the second question, because I'll try to take each question and then I'll try to answer them and then we'll go on. And if you ask two questions, I can only guarantee that I'll answer one. In fact, I'm a politician. Maybe I won't even answer the one that you asked. But I will try at least to answer one question.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear the fentanyl response too, if not today, sometime.
Go ahead.
On Iran, is Russia taking possession of the enriched uranium in Iran a plausible end to the war? And if not, why not?
So first, on the Russia taking possession of the enriched uranium, look, these things are being discussed through negotiation. That is not currently our plan. That has never been our plan. I've seen some reporting on that. I don't know where it comes from, but the president's going to continue to negotiate a deal. So that is not currently the plan of the United States government. The Iranians have not raised it. My sense is that's not something the Iranians would be particularly excited about, and I know the president isn't particularly excited about it either, but who knows? I'm not going to make pre-commitments in a negotiation on any particular topic. On the question of fentanyl, a lot of people have died from fentanyl, absolutely. A lot of it has come from mainland China. We're certainly aware of that. But here's what I'll say. First of all, we've made incredible strides under Donald Trump's leadership to cut down on fentanyl deaths. If you look at the number of people who died in 2026, it's going to be lower than the number who died in 2025, which is way lower than the number who died in 2024. This is one of the things that I think all Americans, we should be celebrating, and I'm certainly proud of the president's leadership for making this possible. We ran, if you remember, in November of 2024 on a very simple idea that a lot of fentanyl came from East Asia. It was smuggled into Central and South America, and then the cartels would bring it into our country, and a lot of our people would get poisoned and killed because of it. We said if you got control of the southern border, we would see a substantial reduction in the number of people who died from fentanyl overdoses in the United States of America, and that is exactly what's happened. Now, yes, the president has raised this with President Xi any number of times. I know it came up during the meeting that they had in China just last week, but it's come up in any number of phone calls, and our sense is that President Xi has been willing to work with us on this, and obviously we want to continue to ensure that the Chinese work with us as much as possible because we don't want our people to be poisoned. So we'll keep working on that issue with the Chinese. There's been, I think, a big amount of progress that's been made, but of course we can make a lot more progress, and we're certainly going to be committed to doing exactly that. Right. Yeah. White jacket, sorry.
Oh, hey, yeah. Natalie with Washington
Natalie,
Post.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Does the government need to create a new mandatory review process for new AI models, given the concerns about Mythos? And secondly, in a few days, Pope Leo is going to release his encyclical on artificial intelligence. What influence, if any, do you see the Pope's guidance on AI having to broader society?
Well, I mean, I think when the Pope issues an encyclical on artificial intelligence, it's going to have some influence. I, of course, don't know how much influence. I don't know exactly what it's going to say. But I think when the leader of the world's largest Christian denomination speaks on an issue like that, it's certainly going to have some influence. And I'm sure it'll contain a lot of insights, some of which I'll probably agree with, some of which I may not. But I think that it's going to be a very, very important document. And I think that, one of the things I always found fascinating about Pope Leo is that he chose the name Leo XIV, which of course is recollecting Leo XIII. Leo XIII was the Pope during a period of incredible industrial transformation in the entire world. Of course, that industrial transformation, according to a lot of people, led to the rise of fascism and communism in Europe. I think it was interesting that Leo XIV chose that name to maybe apply Christian social teaching in a new era with a new technological innovation in the same way that the Industrial Revolution was the technological innovation of its time. So I think it'll be fascinating. I'm looking forward to reading it. My guess is it's going to have a lot of influence. On the question of what our policy is going to be, look, what we're trying to do in the Trump administration is very simple. The president wants us to be pro-innovation. He wants us to win the AI race against all other countries in the world. He recognizes that AI is going to be an important tool, not just for our economy, but for our military. And so he wants to ensure that we are winning that particular race. We also want to make sure that we're protecting people. We're protecting people's data. We're protecting people's privacy. I think with this Mythos release, one of the things that we're very focused on, of course, is whether not necessarily the developers of Mythos, but whether some other bad actor could use Mythos to target various cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So it's something that right now we're working in a collaborative way with the technology companies, and we're just trying to make sure that the American people are as safe as possible. I'm not going to get ahead of the executive order or any other actions that are going to come out, but we're trying to balance those two things. We want to be pro-innovation. We recognize, artificial intelligence could be great. It could help us find cures to diseases that currently, people are dying from or suffering from. It also does have some downsides, and we're trying to balance that safety against innovation. And we think that we've got the right balance here in the Trump administration, but it's something we're going to have to keep on working on because that's just the nature of these technologies is they certainly change. Let's go. Is that Reagan all the way in the back? Daily Caller? There we go. Okay.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on Fox 35 TV. If you're just joining us on the TV side, we have been listening in as Vice President JD Vance continues to take questions in the White House press briefing this afternoon. We are going to step aside from that for a few minutes, though, here, because we want to follow up on a story out of Titusville and some flooding fears as we head into the rainy season here across our region. Joining me live now to talk about this is Fox 35's Esther Bauer, joining us live now via Zoom. And Esther, we know some folks there in Titusville are concerned after they saw just a little bit of rainfall.
Yeah, just an afternoon thunderstorm. Neighbors said it was about 35 minutes or so. And they unfortunately dealt with a lot of roadway flooding where cars were, trying to get through. They were getting stuck. They were turning around in people's front yards. And so seeing this after just a 30-minute rain shower or so has one man, he told me he stays up at night thinking about flooding and just the fears of, am I going to lose my home during this hurricane season because of the flooding? Now, this matters to these people because just last year they had record-setting rainfall. We're talking about 15 inches fell, and that did flood out people's homes. Many people lost their homes. They are still trying to rebuild from that flooding. Now, that was a historic rainfall. And so the city said our systems were not equipped to handle that much rain. But what worries them is now seeing hurricane season right around the corner, seeing an afternoon storm already causing road flooding. They are scared. Has the city done anything to make the stormwater system stronger? And what we're starting to see is there's been a lot of people out documenting data, trying to gather what they are seeing in their communities. And unfortunately, what they're seeing is drainage ditches that are completely clogged. They're seeing these water systems that are supposed to allow movement of water overgrown like jungles, so water can't go anywhere. And even in some situations, you're seeing culverts that literally have grass growing out of them. So there really is no way these systems are going to move water. And if they are moving water, they're not moving it quickly. So the biggest fear that residents have is, have we done anything? Are we even maintaining what we have? And is my home going to flood going into this hurricane season? So we did ask the city about this, and the city told us at a recent city council meeting, they did approve a study where they are going to be trying to update, okay, where is the stormwater systems failing? Where does the infrastructure need to be fixed? So they're starting a study to do that. Going to take about 18 months. We're also told in the upcoming budget cycle, the city council will be trying to see if they need to up the budget when it comes to stormwater maintenance. Do they need more money to be able to go out and clear out these ditches, go into these drains, get all this debris out? So the city is working on it, but a lot of these fixes we're talking about, a study is going to take 18 months. So we're not going to see those changes right now. Residents are saying when they do call about my ditch is overflowing, I have debris in my ditch, the water's not moving, they're told they have other projects before them. So definitely some fears, and people are just hoping that we don't see historic rainfall or any kind of strong storms that could eventually flood homes.
Yeah, 18 months for a study, that's certainly not going to help neighbors there right now or this rainy season, even later on this hurricane season. So how did things get like this then? What is the city's response to that, especially if we already know that the situation we saw with the flooding there last year? Why were things allowed to get to this point again?
Well, another story that we covered is that the city's stormwater plan, their stormwater maintenance plan, hadn't been updated since the 60s. So the city had been working on a stormwater plan for decades old. We've seen the city of Titusville growing extremely quickly, especially with the booming space programs that we are seeing. So it's really just a lot of outdated plans. They haven't updated until, now we're starting that process. But the city maintains and did tell us they are cleaning out ditches. They are cleaning out these drains. So they're telling us that that work is happening. I think the frustration for residents is it's not happening as fast or as much as they want it to be happening. We also know it gets challenging when it comes to how the governments work. Is this a county ditch? Is this a city ditch? Should the county be clearing out this drain? You know, folks don't really care about what agency does it. They just want it done, and they don't want to see kind of this red tape of this isn't my problem. This agency has to fix this. They don't want that to bog down the work actually happening, especially since we are so close to hurricane season starting and unfortunately already seeing rain and flooding and street problems popping up.
All right, Fox 35's Esther Bauer, we appreciate you looking into this. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Before we go to break here, let's go ahead and get you back to the White House press briefing room. Want to hear a little more from the Vice President as he answers some more questions from reporters this afternoon.
That foreign policy is not to reward Putin or not to punish a country like Poland, which we love. We love Poland. We love the Polish people. No. What we're trying to do, what our foreign policy is geared towards, is promoting European independence and sovereignty. We want Europe to take more ownership over its own territorial integrity. We want Europe to step up in a big way. Now, I think you said 4,000 troops. We've not reduced the troop levels in Poland by 4,000 troops. What we did is that we delayed a troop deployment that was going to go to Poland. That's not a reduction. That's just a standard delay in rotation that sometimes happens in these situations. But here's the fundamental problem. Poland is capable of defending itself with a lot of support from the United States. We're not talking about pulling every single American troop out of Europe. We're talking about shifting some resources around in a way that maximizes American security. I don't think that's bad for Europe. That's encouraging Europe to take more ownership. The United States cannot be the policeman of the world. We want to be good allies. We want to make sure that our troop presence promotes regional stability in Europe. The president has not said, though he could, the president has not said that he's taken all of the troops out of Europe, but Europe has to stand on its own 2 feet. And that's something that he's been consistent of, frankly, not even since the beginning of this administration, going back to the first administration, is we have got to have more sovereignty and more of Europe standing on its own 2 feet. That will continue to be our policy in Europe.
Those troops will go eventually to Poland?
What I said is that is it a delay in troop rotation? Those troops could go elsewhere in Europe. We could decide to send them elsewhere. We actually haven't made the final determination about where those troops are ultimately going to go. But what I'm saying is it is not accurate to say that we are pulling a bunch of troops out. It is a very small and very minor thing. And I think, frankly, a lot of the European media, again, is overreacting to this a bit. And here's one thing I'll say about this. Look, I have, for my entire life, I'm 41 years old. For my entire life, I have heard chirping from the European media about everything that's wrong with the United States of America. We don't have this. We don't have that. We don't spend enough on health care, even though part of the reason why we spend so much on defense was because we have tens of thousands of troops in Europe. I think that if the European media wants to attack the President of the United States, they need to start looking in the mirror. All he has said is that we're going to be good allies, we're going to be good friends, we're going to be trading partners, but it is reasonable for Europe to take a little bit more ownership over its continental integrity.
The White House press briefing continuing. Vice President JD Vance continuing to take some questions from reporters this afternoon. We're going to take a break right now here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. Time now for our Tampa Connection, where we take a look at some of the big stories in the Bay Area. And for that, we go to Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, who joins us live now from the Fox 13 newsroom. Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Well, a crash on Interstate 75 has shattered multiple families and left a 21-year-old woman dead. The Florida Highway Patrol says 53-year-old Dennis Lee Olson was driving drunk early Sunday morning when he triggered this wrong-way crash in Charlotte County. Investigators say traffic cameras near mile marker 150 captured Olson's Ford F-150 making a complete U-turn directly into the northbound lanes of I-75. Troopers say Olson's blood alcohol level was .222, which is nearly 3 times the legal limit. His truck hit 2 oncoming vehicles. The impact killed a 21-year-old woman from Bradenton and 3 people in a second vehicle, including a 12-year-old as well as a 15-year-old, suffered serious injuries. Olson is now facing charges of vehicular homicide and DUI manslaughter. He's being held without bond in the Charlotte County Jail, and now a routine background check shows that this was not Olson's first time driving under the influence. Court records from Minnesota reveal a 2019 arrest for a misdemeanor DWI. Following that arrest, he was placed on probation for 2 years in order to take a Mothers Against Drunk Driving class. Advocates and law enforcement stress this entire tragedy was 100% preventable, pointing to ride shares, taxis, and designated drivers as simple options that could have saved a life. Garrett?
Yeah, certainly heartbreaking to hear the details of this. And like you said, there are, in this day and age, so many different options to that you don't have to get behind the wheel if you are drinking or have been intoxicated.
Yeah, exactly. There's just so many options out there. This did not have to happen. It was definitely a tragedy that, as troopers say, was 100% preventable.
Next in our Tampa Connection, and quite a bit of funding coming in to help with a major highway project there.
Yes, residents in Fishhawk Ranch, they're saying that traffic has grown astronomically along Lithia Pinecrest Road and has steadily worsened over the years due to the number of families moving into the community. They say that the traffic has caused long backups, safety concerns, and carefully timed commutes around school traffic. County leaders say relief is coming, though, through several large-scale transportation projects that are now in the planning stages. Hillsborough County officials are planning a $249 million improvement project at one of the area's busiest intersections. That would be Lithia Pinecrest Road and State Road 39. The project includes dual left turn lanes on both Lithia Pinecrest approaches, single left turn lanes on the County Road 39 approaches, and single right turn lanes on all 4 approaches. County officials say the upgrades are needed to handle the continued population growth. Now, Lithia resident Jim Gaffney says traffic conditions have become increasingly difficult during his 7-mile commute to Valrico. He now plans his travels around peak traffic times, specifically tracking when local school car lines start. Another Fishhawk resident, Lisa Favola, says that traffic backups have also created safety concerns. She says she often worries about being rear-ended by drivers who are distracted by their phones. Because the major intersection project requires land acquisition, construction is not expected to begin until 2031. In the meantime, Hillsborough County is proposing a $450,000 short-term project that would add a northbound turn lane on County Road 39 and expand the southbound right turn lane approaching the intersection. Residents can submit feedback through the county's online public engagement form through next Tuesday. A little further south, Hillsborough County is also planning to widen Big Bend Road from US 41 to Covington Garden Drive. That project will turn the 4-lane rural roadway into a 6-lane urban corridor. An in-person public engagement meeting for the Big Bend Road project is scheduled for Thursday at 6 p.m. at Eisenhower Middle School. The county leaders say these transportation improvements are critical to reducing congestion, improving safety, and keeping up with the rapid growth that's taking place in Fishhawk and in Riverview. Garrett?
And finally, in our Tampa Connection, Nancy, a piece of history coming to Sarasota.
Yes, that's right. The Tunnel to Towers steel across America. The beam, it's about 22 feet long and weighs 16,000 pounds. It will be arriving at the Emma E. Booker Elementary School today. And this school holds a significant place in history. It is where former President George W. Bush was reading to a group of second graders when he learned that the nation was under attack on September 11th. Tunnel to Towers says bringing the beam to Sarasota helps ensure we never forget the sacrifice, courage, and unity that emerged from that tragic day. Sarasota County school officials say tonight's event will honor the students and staff who were at school that morning. Several former students and the teacher whose classroom the president was visiting are returning to take part in the ceremony. The program at Emma E. Booker Elementary begins this evening at 6 o'clock. It will feature a multi-jurisdictional honor guard, a pipes and drum procession, and several speakers. The beam is making 35 stops across 21 states before returning to New York City for the 25th anniversary of 9/11. Garrett?
All right, and what a piece of history that is. Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us with our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
Time now for our Florida Live forecast. I've got Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer joining me live now. And TJ, how are we looking out there?
A few showers and storms, not too bad, but the heat and humidity, it is here, Garrett. It's feeling like summer all across the Sunshine State right now.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I feel like we're getting closer and closer to the official start of the rainy season. We've kind of seen it develop for the Gulf Coast. Not quite there yet, but today a little more reminiscent of it. I think coverage over the next week or so going to gradually increase. We'll see a little more moisture. We also have this area of low pressure upstairs in the atmosphere offshore in the Bahamas. That is kind of aiding with that onshore flow, the potential for showers, as well as that area of high pressure at the surface in the Atlantic. So all of that kind of keeping things slightly unsettled. We're seeing some of these showers and storms right now, especially across places like Marion County. A lot of this hugging the turnpike. We've seen these now even around Orlando. So don't be too shocked if you hear some thunder. You drive through a quick downpour here as we head through the remainder of the early afternoon. We can see some of those clouds and some of those showers off to the northwest there from our iDrive camera. It looks a little more threatening out there, but we're still seeing some sunshine and temperatures have warmed up as a result, but you can kind of see those pockets of cooler conditions with some of those showers. Only 83 in Ocala, comparing that to 90 in Sanford just about, and 87 in Orlando. We're also sitting at 90 degrees in Bushnell, feeling more like the upper 90s though in Bushnell. Feels like 95 in Bithlo. So be sure if you're heading outdoors this afternoon, drink plenty of water, try not to overdo it. As we continue to feel this hot and humid combo, that's going to be the story really through the remainder of our work week and as we approach our holiday weekend. Now, the thing is, with dew points in the 70s, we have more moisture in the air, and that is going to keep temperatures warmer through the overnight and only going to get into the low to mid 70s, even closer to 80 in places like Melbourne and Cocoa Beach. We'll see if maybe a spotty shower storm even through the overnight as any moisture in the Atlantic kind of drifts onshore with that dominant onshore wind. And then for our day tomorrow, we're expecting highs once again pretty close to where they'll be today, upper 80s and low 90s, with hit or miss showers and thunderstorms developing, especially in the afternoon. Had to pull out the Muggy meter, and I feel like this is going to be a story this weekend. You can see those dew points getting back into the middle to even upper 70s, so closing in on the oppressive category, making it feel all the more worse if you have outdoor plans through our holiday weekend. Feeling like around 95 on Thursday, and then probably getting close to the century mark, Garrett, as we head through Saturday, Sunday, and into Memorial Day weekend. And I still think it's probably too early to say, hey, postpone any plans, but I do think that we'll have, with a little more moisture in the air, probably more scattered showers and thunderstorms, the chances a little higher for rain into our holiday weekend.
Yeah, I would say it's certainly appropriate that you brought back the Muggy meter already.
Yeah, I had to. I feel like, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, and now it just feels like our classic summer pattern is upon us.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. It definitely you can feel it the moment you walk out the door.
This morning, it was probably before 9, I walked the dog, and I was like, wow, I am already sweating my you-know-what off.
Yep.
I was like, this is summer in Florida. It is. We're in the unofficial starts of this weekend, which is crazy.
It certainly comes with the territory.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Garrett.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday afternoon. A lot of interesting developments in Florida politics over the past few days, and more things to watch in the coming days as well. And so joining us live now to break all of this down for us, we are pleased to be joined by Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter and the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter that you can get delivered in your inbox every morning. Kimberly, always good talking with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's first talk about some of these congressional district races, because there are several that have really interesting dynamics that we've been seeing kind of play out over the past few days and weeks since redistricting happened here in Florida and the governor signed those new maps into law. We know here in Central Florida, the 9th district is one that Democrats are pouring resources into for Darren Soto to try to hold on to his seat. But we know there's a lot of interesting things happening in the 2nd district and the 20th district in South Florida as well.
Oh my goodness, where to begin? Well, let's start with the 2nd district. That is actually the biggest district by landmass in the state. It stretches from Tallahassee to Panama City, and it has a lot of rural areas. And actually, the Republicans who are competing for that seat, which is an open seat because Neil Dunn will be retiring, had a debate on Monday in Tallahassee. And so it really gave us kind of the chance to see what the race is all about. Sort of the TLDR on that is all of them are super pro-Trump. Trump himself has not endorsed in the race. But I think the biggest divisions really came out over foreign policy. There were a couple candidates who were very nervous about the war in Iran and how it's affecting gas prices. One of the candidates even warned that Republicans would lose the election if the war didn't end quickly. So pretty interesting how crowded that field is. You know, it even includes the Republican Party of Florida Chair Evan Power. It includes a former Rick Scott staffer. And so it is definitely one to watch. Very curious to see how that turns out, because I haven't seen a lot of polling there. But it is going to be one of the more competitive ones for Republicans, although Democrats have a couple candidates that are well known in that race. Gwen Graham herself even had thought about getting in, but decided not to. So it's one of the more interesting ones for sure.
And then in South Florida, the questions continue to persist about the 20th district.
Yeah, listen, I spent a lot of time in Broward last week talking to different leaders, trying to get a sense of who's doing what. The candidates who are currently in the race, all of them are Black candidates, and the seat has been held historically by a Black member of Congress, and they feel that it would be wrong for someone else to come in, namely Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and run in their district, is how they put it. You know, they think that it's unfair. They think it would be a bid to sort of split the Black vote in the district, and so they're really speaking out about that. You know, I interviewed Luther Campbell for Florida Playbook, and he did not hold back. I mean, he really was talking about how offended he was that she would even think about it. He also was calling out Sheila Sherphillis McCormick, who used to hold the seat, but actually resigned because of an ethics and legal investigation and charges into allegations that she stole FEMA funds and routed them to her congressional campaign. She is actually running again. And so it's a very crowded primary. It's very, very contentious, I would say. And so that's another one where I'll be spending a lot of time just to see what the mood is and what ends up happening there. I don't know if Debbie Wasserman Schultz will run there yet. I don't think she's decided yet either, but they are doing polling there, and it's become just a very, very heated topic.
And just big picture here, because in the 9th district is one we're watching closely here in Central Florida, the Kissimmee area, and Darren Soto. And so this redistricting and these new lines really have painted a lot of Democrats and incumbents even into some tough corners.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is, and I think what makes it harder for them, right, is that it's being contested in court. So let's say the maps get struck down and then all this infighting will have been for nothing. But Democrats have to make some hard decisions if they're, some of their boundaries as redrawn are now more competitive for a Republican to come in and potentially win. And so Democrats have to decide, okay, do I want to run in a safer seat, or do I want to, stay in my district and see if I can, hold down the fort? So yeah, that is a really complicated decision, especially for those, who've been in Congress a really long time. And I don't know, there are others who say that maybe the maps will sort of backfire, right? And the other seats that may have been winnable for Republicans are now more competitive for Democrats. I haven't seen them lay out precisely which one those are, although Leader Jeffries had, had called out a few names, but I have to sort of see the data on those. But it puts members in a tough spot, and so far, half have said they're running again. Jared Moskowitz has said if he does run, he'll run in District 25. And then Debbie Wasserman Schultz is running, but hasn't decided which district. So that's those are the four most targeted members and what they're planning to do.
Now, let's also talk about what the current kind of political climate that we're seeing. We know there's a lot of high-profile primaries across the country that we're watching today, but you also wrote in Florida Playbook about the fallout from one of the primaries over the weekend. That was in Louisiana, where a Republican, Bill Cassidy, fell in the primary there, and kind of what message that sends to Republicans here in Florida. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, look, one of the things that I really try to do in my Florida Playbook newsletter is look at how things that are happening across the U.S. might also reverberate in Florida. Sometimes they won't, right? Florida's unique, for sure. It's almost like a whole separate country. But I do think that what the polling and special elections and 2025 elections have shown us is that Florida is not sort of exempt from the national mood. That a lot of the ways people are feeling about high costs, about the war in Iran, and things like that, immigration, are all reverberating here and affecting how people vote. And so in looking at Louisiana, I think it was just a really important reminder that, Trump really dominates in these primaries. So even if you have individuals who are Republican, who are running for Congress, running for statewide office, who might try to differentiate themselves from President Trump, first of all, most will not even try to do that. But when they do, and Governor DeSantis is a good example of this, when they do, they'll sort of go after the issue instead of Trump himself, and try to paint instead their closeness to Trump. Now, one of the things that I think is important to underscore is that this works really well in a primary. We don't know yet whether it'll work in a general election. So this is just a dynamic that I continue to watch, not just how close Republicans put themselves to Trump, but where they start showing some of that distance, where they start to, sort of point out where they disagree with the president, because their elections could be on the line if they don't.
Yeah, like you said, we'll see how it all plays out in the general election. That's where it'll be really, we'll be watching closely, that's for sure. Now, finally here, Kimberly, I want to talk about property taxes. We know that's been a big topic from the governor. We heard more from him yesterday. Talking about this at a roundtable discussion in Brevard County. But he's also has gotten a little bit of pushback from Republican Senator Rick Scott on this issue.
Yeah, look, Senator Rick Scott obviously is Governor DeSantis's predecessor in the governor's mansion, but the two really don't have a close relationship. I actually interviewed Senator Scott a few weeks ago and asked him about the relationship, and he essentially told me that there is none. That's unusual, right, for a senator and a sitting governor not to have a strong relationship. Ashley Moody, who's the other senator, was appointed by Governor DeSantis, so obviously they're very close. But Senator Scott was very concerned about the idea of just cutting property taxes on all primary homes outright, because he doesn't want taxes to then, just be shifted to somewhere else. And he said that anyone who thinks about this has to also think about where they're going to make up the money that they lose from property taxes, right? The money that pays for schools, firefighters, police officers, libraries, you name it. All the things that we enjoy from our local government that are paid for by property taxes. So he did raise concerns about that. And his office also likewise sent me a statement when Governor DeSantis publicly criticized House Speaker Daniel Perez last week. And basically, you know, over the whole budget process, it's been a very nasty ongoing thing. But Rick Scott jumped in to defend Speaker Perez. So I thought that was very interesting. And I'll be curious to see whether he speaks out more about the governor as his term winds down.
Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter, Florida Playbook author. Always enjoy talking with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Same. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. Another execution set for later this week here in the state of Florida. We're talking about Richard Knight, who is scheduled to be put to death on Thursday after Governor DeSantis signed a death warrant for him last month. The 47-year-old was convicted in the 2000 killings of a Broward County woman and her 4-year-old daughter. Joining us live now to talk about this case is Tony Lowe, who's a trial attorney at the Merlin Law Group and former Florida Assistant State Attorney as well, one of the prosecutors on this case. Tony, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live.
My pleasure.
So first of all, what stands out to you about this case? What do you remember most about trying this case in court and what ended up happening?
I got a call shortly after the homicides were discovered in the middle of the night. And so I was involved in the case from that point on. I can remember during the trial, Hans, the husband and father of the two victims, was relating to the jury what had transpired that morning, the last morning he saw them before he left for work. And his little girl said, "Do the robot, Daddy, do the robot." And she stood on top of his shoes, held his hands, and he pretended to be a robot. I dare say I'll never forget that day. Everything in that courtroom stopped, and everybody was focused on Hans talking about the little girl that he lost.
Just heartbreaking details. I would imagine a case like this is difficult, even for for you to try, for the jury to hear, for everyone involved in a case like this, listening to testimony like that, seeing the evidence presented.
I think that any time a child is murdered, it impacts people in a multitude of ways. It makes it very challenging for law enforcement officers, for prosecutors, and I'm sure for jurors as well. Because as a parent, generally the most precious thing to us is our children. And we want to do everything we can to make sure they're safe and they're never harmed.
I think one of the questions people have sometimes in cases is about the decision to seek the death penalty or not. Was it an easy determination in this case, or what do you remember about the decision to pursue the death penalty in this?
When we analyzed the case, we felt there were several aggravating factors that make the death penalty a potential outcome of a trial. Two of the most significant aggravators in the state of Florida are heinous, atrocious, and cruel, often referred to as HAC, and CCP, which stands for cold, calculated, and premeditated. Those two aggravators were so prevalent in this case, and I would suggest called very loudly for the death penalty.
What would you say was, as the prosecutor, the biggest challenge in this case specifically?
As a prosecutor, you don't get any do-overs. And so I would approach every case making sure that justice was done. And when you have a case such as this one, where it's extremely brutal, a 24-year-old mother and a 4-year-old daughter lost their lives in the worst possible way. You want to make sure that every piece of evidence that's admissible is presented in a cogent fashion so the jury understands exactly what it is that happened in this case. So as a prosecutor, that's your job, that's your duty.
Why, in your opinion, why does this case remain significant? Why is this something that people should know about as the defendant here, Richard Knight, now set to be executed this week?
It's my belief that the reason Knight killed Hanessia, the 4-year-old little girl, was to make sure that she wouldn't be able to identify him as the murderer of her mother. That's reprehensible. Anytime someone kills a child, but to do it to save himself from being prosecuted makes it just so much more egregious. And I dare say, we as human beings value, treasure children. No harm should come to them. And what he did, he started out this murder with a knife from the butcher block in the kitchen. He returned to that butcher block 4 more times in order to carry out the 2 murders, because the knives would break, because they would bend, because of the incredible force that he plunged them into his victims. But he kept going back. Is that cold, calculated, and premeditated? Absolutely it is. Is it heinous, atrocious, and cruel as a mother who knows what's going on? As you're getting stabbed over and over again, the murderer is leaving you to go get another murder weapon to continue his brutal attack. This was a very, very disturbing crime scene. And Richard Knight got a sentence that brings about accountability for the horrific actions that he conducted when he murdered Anesia and Odysseia.
Tony, it's been 26 years since these killings, 20 years since the trial. It seems like this is a case that has stayed with you.
That's an understatement. I'll never forget this case.
And so what would you say to Richard Knight if you had the chance to speak with him as his hours wind down before he's put to death this week? What would you want to say to him? What would you want him to know? What would you want to tell him?
I don't have anything to say to Richard Knight. The only people I'd want to talk to are the family members of Anesia and Odysseia, and to tell them again, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Is this a step that you think is necessary to provide justice and closure to the family and all those impacted?
I think that the death penalty is a necessary tool. I think it takes too long to implement it when it is a sentence that an individual receives. And I think that Mr. Knight richly deserves the death penalty in this case.
Tony Lowe, trial attorney with Merlin Law Group, former Florida Assistant State Attorney. We appreciate your time today. I know not an easy case to talk about, but we appreciate you sharing those recollections with us and speaking with us today here on Florida Live. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. The Knights softball team, the UCF Knights, going to be heading to the Super Regional this week, where they are playing in Los Angeles at UCLA. It's a tough task ahead of them. UCLA is year in, year out, one of the top softball programs in the nation. But UCF really making a name for themselves right now with their second trip to Super Regionals in school history. This comes after they beat Florida State in Tallahassee in the regional to send them to this historic step. We had the chance to speak with UCF head softball coach Cindy Ball Malone today, who talked with us about what this means to her, what it means to the program as UCF gets ready for this next step.
Instead of saying satisfied, I'm just so proud of our team. They set out on this mission, and people in the softball world, we've talked to them, have kind of laughed at our mission, and we said, if people are laughing, then we have the right mission, because it would be too easy if they weren't laughing at us. And so I will just say I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the work and the preparation that they've put into this, and just the trust in that. I know we had some moments in that last game where we tried to act human for a second, and with just a shock to them or just talking to them, and then they get back into it. That's just trusting and believing. I don't think this group will ever be satisfied, even if you tell them that they're done playing in the early June. Because this team is special, and they want to play as long as they can, even past the season. So, and then they're going to want more. And that's, as a coach, I can't ask for more. I mean, hearing the conversations in the middle of our game and listening to our slappers at the bottom of the lineup just talking about, what are you seeing, what are you doing? And just, they all seem like coaches. And that's the moment, I talking to my husband at night sometimes, I'm like, I just want them to lead themselves. When are they going to do it? When are they going to do it? And I just remember standing at that top step in that dugout and thinking, we're here. They're leading themselves. So don't know if that answered your question, but that's it. I mean, we're at that moment where the Knights are leading the Knights.
You said they want to play more and that they're locked in. So how this week do you guard against that, being satisfied with where you got after all these years and move forward?
Yeah. Well, our goal wasn't to just get to Super Regionals. We've been talking about that a lot. And, we have to keep the standard, and the thing, one pitch at a time. And so we know we're going up against the Giants. For those that don't know about softball tradition and history, I'm going to talk it up. I grew up 30 minutes away from the Bruins, and I guess the best way I can describe it is, they're the Alabama of softball. Alabama football, in softball, is kind of growing up what I knew and what I was aware of, and just the tradition there is so amazing. They have some of the greatest softball players coming out of there, and what an awesome opportunity for us to go in and get it done. And we're disruptors. The norm is for a program like UCLA to move past it and move on. And if we're true disruptors, then we're going to take this task and this mission and just keep it our thing. We're just going to keep playing against our best selves. So at the beginning of the year, and you've heard Eric Lopez say this, we are very big on our All-American dugout. It is so difficult to go and recruit highly talented players and say only 9 of them get to be on the field at a time, 10 get to be in the lineup, but we still need you to be all in. And that concept is so hard to grasp and understand. And we'll show videos of things, but we talk about if your name is on that lineup, whether it's in the top 10 or at the bottom, you're a starter. and here is why, and here are your roles. And so we have people assigned to watching runners on bases, people assigned to watching, people giving signs to the, from the coach's box or things like that. And in that moment, I'm not going to lie, I was frustrated. I thought we could have made a better play. I thought we could have handled the ball better. And we're throwing the ball around, and I'm like, what the heck? And I go to put my clipboard down, and I hear, Coach Bear, she left early. And I look over, and they're like, she left early? She left early? I 100% call it. And I said, all right. And it was with such conviction. Taylor Kittleman and Kayla Alexandra, they both said, we saw it, and they were on it. And so I went up to the umpire, and there was also some funny thing that happened at the plate with some of the other runners that went through. And so I said, I'd like you to talk about that, but I am going to challenge this. And so they went over to challenge it, and they showed it up on the video board, and right away I was like, look at this, All-American dugout just got one. The bunker challenged it and went after it. And it takes the words out of my mouth right now. It's such an emotional time, because in that moment I knew, this is the team. This is the team. Truly bought into something that when every person comes here to play, they want to have that impact on the field with their glove, with their cleats. But what those two women did, they gave us an opportunity to go and win that game. And that's just as important as the Beth Damon 2-run home run, the Izzy Mertes 2-run home run, the Tori Payne, performance in the circle. And so if anyone can understand how important every role is on this team, that's the moment. And I hope that stays in our program for as long as possible, because we say all roles may not be equal, but they all have equal value. And that showed right there. That was evidence.
Talk about the All-American.
Coach Cindy Ball Malone, Coach Bear getting emotional there, talking about that. The ability to challenge that play, have that overturn several runs taken off the board. That was a huge play in that game that ended up helping take some runs, keep UCF in the game, and give them a chance to win that. Couple of things here as our time together winds down. Let me give you a live look in Simi Valley, California. These live images coming courtesy KTTV. The wildfire there continues to burn. We were taking a look at some of these live images yesterday. Give you another live look today. More flames. The Sandy fire there is 5% contained, burning about 1,400 acres in Southern California. So we're continuing to keep an eye on that and monitor that situation this afternoon. Let me also give you a live look right now, also in California, San Diego. We're about to hear from San Diego police giving an update on the mosque attack. 2 teenage suspects in that were found dead. This briefing set to begin at 3 o'clock, so just a couple of minutes out. We'll have this live for you on our digital platforms, so you can watch us on Fox Local and YouTube, Fox 35 News Plus. We will have this live streaming for you on this update that we're keeping an eye out for. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live, and we'll see you next time.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here. I want to give you a live look right now inside the San Diego Police Department, where we're expecting an update any minute now on the mosque attack in San Diego. The two teenage suspects who ended up killing 3 people at the Islamic Center of San Diego yesterday. Investigators say they're looking into this as a hate crime. The suspects, 17 and 18 years old, they were reported dead from self-inflicted gunshot wounds as well. So we're expecting an update on this any minute now, and we will bring this news conference to you live when it does begin. Right now, though, let me give you a live look in Simi Valley, California, where a large wildfire continues to burn at close to 1,400 acres and counting, just 5% contained. And you can see heavy equipment there trying to clear some of that brush, create some of those channels that could help stop the fire from spreading. But just look at the size of those flames and that billowing smoke. Terrifying scene there. We know evacuation warnings and evacuation orders remain in place and have also continued to grow as well. So we're keeping an eye on that. Though right now, let me get you back to San Diego, where the police chief getting ready to speak. It looks like potentially some prosecutors as well. Let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference is about to get underway.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let me start by saying we're going to try to cover many of the developments that we've learned over the last 24 hours. We're going to identify the names of the victims from yesterday's horrific event. But what I want to really start with explaining to everybody, particularly in our Muslim community. I know it may not feel this way, but we are one community. You're going to see a visible presence at places of worship throughout our county. Law enforcement is banding together to make sure that there is a feeling of being safe at every place of worship. I talked yesterday about the heroic actions of a security guard at the Islamic Center. I had no idea how heroic those actions were. The individuals that did this heinous act ran past the security guard, most likely not knowing he was there. He immediately observed the threat to everybody at the mosque. He began to engage them with gunfire. Both suspects returned fire. You can see the security guard reach for his radio and put out the lockdown protocol. The security guard then continued to engage in a gun battle with these two suspects. His actions, without a doubt, delayed, distracted, and ultimately deterred these two individuals from gaining access to the greater areas of the mosque where as many as 140 kids were within 15 feet of these suspects. Tragically, he died in that gun battle. The other two victims, as best we can tell with the video surveillance at the mosque, drew the attention of both of these suspects back out into the parking lot area, where they were unfortunately unable to flee. And both suspects were able to successfully corner them and kill both of them. While both suspects were outside, the massive response that was seconds away undoubtedly pushed both of the suspects to run back to their vehicle and flee the parking lot. And I want to be very clear, all three of our victims did not die in vain. Without distracting the attention, without delaying the actions of these two individuals, without question, there would have been many more fatalities yesterday. Here with me to tell you a little bit about these three victims is Imam Taha. What you will not hear from us today is the names of these two suspects. Today is about our victims in our community coming back together again. And I have to say, the courage and the strength that Imam Taha has shown in the last 24 hours is beyond inspiring. And so with that, let me bring up Imam Taha to talk about our three victims.
Thank you, Chief Wald. Excuse me if I get a little bit emotional. We call them our brothers in the community. We call them our martyrs and our heroes. Our security guard, Amin Abdullah, he goes by Amin Abdullah. Brian Climax, such a lovely person. He never stopped smiling to anyone, our community members, as well as our visitors. If it was not for him, as Chief mentioned, the carnage would be much worse. He's the one who stopped them, who slowed them down. If he didn't do what he did, and he sacrificed his life, the two suspects would have easily access to every single classroom. We're so proud of him. I envy him when I see messages about him literally from all over the world talking about his heroism. This is our brother. Second one, Mansour Kaziha, our elder. He goes by Abu al-Izz. He is the pillar of the Islamic Center of San Diego. He has been since 1986, when the community started breaking the ground to build the Islamic Center. He was there. He has been at the Islamic Center for the last 40 years, working non-stop. In the last 22 years, being the Imam and Director of the Islamic Center of San Diego, I have never done anything without him. He is on the top of my list for people to call. Every single thing going wrong. Even the light, is not working. Brother Abu al-Izz, can you come and fix it? Anything that goes wrong, he was the handyman, he was the cook, he was the caretaker, he was the storekeeper. He was everything. I don't know what I'm going to do at the Islamic Center without his assistance, his daily assistance. We miss him. The entire community miss him. Our third brother, Nadir Awad, our neighbor. He lives across the street from the Islamic Center. His wife is a teacher at the Islamic school. He is every single day at the Islamic Center joining the prayers, every single day. When he heard the shooting, he rushed to do something, to protect. And he joined Mansour Kaziha. They died together. Mansour Kaziha was the first one who called 911 right before he was killed. And both of them, they tried to do something. They were hiding in the parking lot next to the kitchen. They tried to do something to protect. But unfortunately, they sacrificed their lives to protect the entire community inside the Islamic Center of San Diego. I was there. I was upstairs. And I heard everything. I was hiding until the law enforcement came and escorted us outside the building. We have never, ever expected such thing to happen at the Islamic Center of San Diego. I mean, we are used to receiving hate mails, hate messages, people driving by and cursing and all that stuff. But such horrible crime, we have never expected this. Even though we tried throughout the years everything we could do, applying for Homeland Security grants. We have a fence, security armed guards, security cameras covering every single spot inside and outside the Islamic Center. What could we do more than this? So this is what my community is going through at this time. My community is mourning. My community is keeping our three heroes in their prayers. My community is around the three families, trying to show support and sympathy. So this is what happened at the Islamic Center, and these are our three heroes. Please keep them in your prayers. Thank you.
Let me say that the collaborative response and approach to yesterday's event has been overwhelming. I know that we've had support from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, from the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, from every law enforcement agency here in San Diego County. Investigators have been working through the night. And here to talk about some of the details and things that we've developed over the last 24 hours is the Special Agent in charge of the FBI here in San Diego, Mark Remley.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Mark Remley. I am the Special Agent in charge of the FBI San Diego Field Office. First, I want to reiterate our deepest condolences to the victims and their families for the horrific incident they suffered yesterday. Violence for any reason will never be the answer. The victims who lost their lives yesterday were there to help others, be part of a community that came together in peace. Instead, they were confronted by teenagers who appear to have been radicalized online to believe that they didn't belong because of how they looked or where they worshiped. They couldn't be more wrong. The FBI takes very seriously any violence, and we refuse to give these subjects a platform to try to inflict their hateful beliefs onto others. We will not stand idly by and give their hate any credibility. We are thoroughly investigating this case to learn everything we can and will not stop until we get to the bottom of what happened and why. But we also want to learn how this happened and what we can do to stop future acts of violence. FBI personnel are working diligently on this case to uncover everything we can about the subjects. I want to thank all the employees of the FBI San Diego Field Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office who worked tirelessly throughout the night. Our SWAT team, our evidence response team, special agents, intelligence analysts, professional staff worked side by side with our San Diego Police Department to collect every piece of evidence and review every piece of information we have so far. Here's what I can share with you that we know at this time about the case. In coordination with the San Diego Police Department, we're currently conducting extensive interviews with the subject's family and friends. We've executed 3 search warrants at residences associated with the subjects. During those searches, we found and seized numerous firearms from 2 of those locations, including numerous pistols, rifles, shotguns, ammunition, tactical gear, as well as electronics. So far in this investigation, we've seized over 30 guns and a crossbow. We're continuing to process the information from all the locations, and we will provide more information when we're able to do so. We've also executed search warrants on the electronic devices the subjects had with them at the time of the incident, and we're in the process of obtaining additional search warrants for additional devices. In the vehicle they used, we also identified writings and various ideologies outlining religious and racial beliefs of how the world they envisioned should look. These subjects did not discriminate on who they hated. And let me be very clear, to anyone that thinks that they can end the world through violence, they are sorely mistaken. The FBI, our law enforcement partners in our community are much stronger than you think, and we will always serve on the right of good. I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners who responded to yesterday's shooting without hesitation. Truly, the quick work of the San Diego Police Department in tracking down the subject's vehicle and their instincts in intercepting the subjects helped keep a horrific situation from being far worse. We are grateful to all of our partners. We couldn't do it without them. We'll continue to work closely with all of our partners through this investigation until we get all the answers we all deserve. Again, we also want to thank the public for their patience, and we ask you to continue submitting information by calling 1-800-CALL-FBI or submitting any photos, digital evidence, or images you may have to fbi.gov/Islamic Center of San Diego shooting. Lastly, our victim specialists are available, and we're getting reinforcements from headquarters today to assist anyone in this community who was impacted by the shooting. This is in addition to the resources the San Diego Police Department and the District Attorney's Office are already making available. For that, I'll turn it over to the Chief.
At the forefront of today's message and our collective direction moving forward is to bring this community back together again. And here, as the mayor and as a person that deeply cares about what is happening here in this city, Mayor Todd Gloria.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you all for being here. Imam Taha, thank you so much for sharing your testimony and your witness and letting your fellow San Diegans know more about these 3 extraordinary men who, as you just heard, sacrificed their own lives in order to protect the children that were at that school and many others who could have otherwise been harmed by these 2 shooters. I want to be very clear that those 2 young men do not represent our city. These 3 Muslim men do. Their heroism, their selflessness represents the very best of this city. And Imam, you've said that your community is mourning. I'm here to say very specifically, our entire city is mourning. And we will mourn these 3 heroes for what they are, heroes. And we will remember their sacrifice always. I want to express my appreciation to our public safety professionals. Chief Wall, you and your department have done an exceptional job. I want the people of this city to know that we are protected by the very best. We fund them, we train them, and we equip them to do their jobs. And you saw yesterday, they did their jobs and they did it exceptionally well. Under Chief Wall's leadership, with the partnership of Sheriff Martinez and our District Attorney Stephan, as well as our partners at the state and federal level, what you see is a level of collaboration that you don't see anywhere else in this country. And that collaboration is what makes us one of the safest big cities in America. My hat's off to every officer who responded to that incident yesterday. I thank you for what you do. I have the utmost respect for what you do, and I thank you on behalf of all the residents of our city. Lastly, I would like to say to my fellow San Diegans, this is a time for us to come together. This pain is unimaginable. And for many of our community, specifically our Muslim brothers and sisters, they need our care, our comfort, our concern, and our support. And I, for one, am here to make sure that they receive it. Charitable funds have been established through the Islamic Center of San Diego to help support the families of these 3 men. There'll be other ways to support them and to show your support in the coming days, and I ask folks to take advantage of those opportunities to show what we are, which is America's finest city, a place on the U.S.-Mexican border, along the Pacific Rim, a place of extreme diversity, and all of us know that we're made better because of that diversity. Now is a time not to divide ourselves, as the 2 murderers yesterday are attempting to do, but instead to come together as one San Diego, and now more than ever, to express our solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters in this time of great need. I know that we will do this because we've done it before, we will do it again. And lastly, again, in memory of the 3 men that were lost yesterday, they represent the very best of the city. Let them always be remembered as the heroes that they are. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up to some questions.
Before they start taking questions, we've got to step aside, take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Facebook. I want to go ahead and get you back to this news conference going on in San Diego, where we are hearing some new details and hearing from officials, San Diego police, the FBI, talking about what we're learning as this investigation continues into the attack at an Islamic center there yesterday. Let's go ahead and listen back in.
The guns were not registered to these individuals and belonged to the parents of one of the individuals. And exactly how they came into, they were able to obtain them is still under investigation.
Chief,
yes, ma'am.
Given the fact that the weapons did come from one of the parents, will you be recommending charges against the parent in this case, or can you share an update on where you're at in that determination?
We're still looking into it. Still, we're 24 hours out.
Chief,
we're still looking into it completely.
Chief, can I ask you, I know you've read the writings. I know you're limited in what you can tell us. We were told before it was hatred towards everyone. Can you give us an idea of maybe a bit more of what the writings contained? And also, do you believe that the students in these 2 schools were the specific targets? Is that who these gunmen wanted to kill?
Repeat the last part of that question.
They ended up at this Islamic Center, which has the 2 schools. Were the students
their main target, you feel? Did they want to kill students?
So we're still trying to gather a bigger picture as to exactly what the intended target location was. I'm going to bring Mark back up here to talk a little bit more about maybe what some of that rhetoric was. But we're still looking into exactly what that scope of threats, that threat picture was.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I can confirm there has been a manifesto that's been recovered. I would reiterate it's early on in the investigation. We are dedicating every resource the FBI has to conduct a thorough analysis of that manifesto to try to learn what led to this, but I think also more importantly, how can we stop future attacks? So I know there's a lot of questions related to this on the community. What I would just continue to reiterate is they didn't discriminate on who they hated. It covered a wide aspect of races and religions.
More than just the Islamic people in that church.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
But Special Agent, they nevertheless, in a city that's majority white, specifically picked out a site where they knew would be immigrants, where they knew would be Muslims. That doesn't seem to suggest respectfully that they hated everybody equally.
I would say we're still too early in the investigation to say that the Islamic Center of San Diego was the specific target. We are assessing and analyzing all the evidence. Again, it's very early. We're still looking through electronics to give us the answers. But again, what I can say is they definitely had a broad hatred towards a lot of folks.
What have you learned from their social
aware of the
media?
suspects live streaming the attack or their own death?
I'm aware of that information, and again, not a lot I can share at this point because we're actively going through those electronics. We just recently got search warrants in place, so we are digging into that as aggressively and as quickly as we can.
To the extent that you're able, can you characterize their deaths?
I can't really. I apologize. Yeah.
You mentioned that they were radicalized online. Can you talk more about that? Is that going through their computers, their laptops, their phones? What can you tell us about that?
We're still going through, again, all that information, but what we do believe is that they met online, and through the course of that online communication, they discovered that they were both residing in the San Diego area, and they became acquaintances or associates and had in-person contact at that point. But in terms of how the radicalization occurred, we're still digging into all that.
I know that you got a call yesterday from one of the suspects' mothers. Have you been in touch? How much have you been in touch with the other suspects?
This news conference continuing, but we are out of time here on Fox 35 News Plus. We appreciate you joining us today. Going to go ahead and take a break here, and then we will send you off to the Fox 35 Storm Team for Fox 35 Weather Plus.
you